Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Giving Numbers 2018 webinar. My name is Andre Solorzano, and I'm the Senior Manager for Data Insights at CECP. I am joined by our colleagues from the Travelers Company, Tara Spain, who's the Vice President and CEO of the Travelers Foundation, and Lisa Colonino, who works at the Community Relations Unit. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and if you can tell us a little bit more about the work you do at the Travelers.
Yeah, so this is Tara. I'll just start off by providing a little overview of who Travelers is. So Travelers is a leading property and casualty insurance company. We have offices all throughout the United States, the United Kingdom, parts of South America, and Canada. Our company has a strong focus on diversity and the community, and last year provided nearly $23 million to support communities. And we're really happy to be here to talk to you all today about some of the ways that we support the communities. My role specifically is to manage national and strategic programs.
And hi, I'm Lisa Colonino, and I work with the department on our finance initiatives in addition to operations and systems.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you join me for this webinar. And we're happy to announce that we just released officially Giving Numbers 2018. So it's available for the public at cecp.co. There's the link on the presentation. So it's ready for the public. And we're really happy for this release. And we also thank all our sponsors and also our companies who participated in this year's survey. It's a collective effort, and we are really happy to have this compilation of really useful CSR and corporate societal engagement trends. So we're going to start with our webinar. This is the agenda for today's presentation. We're going to talk a little bit about the context in which Giving Numbers happens and how we collect the data. We're going to also cover some total given trends of the last 3 years and of the last year also. We're going to cover also a little bit about program areas, how is total giving invested across different cost areas, funding type, meaning that refers to the breakdown of total giving by types of giving, like direct cash, non-cash, and a little bit about structure and measurement, which is a critical area for our companies, and also some information related to international giving. And at the end, you can also pose your questions through our chat, through the app, and we'll be more than happy to answer your questions at the end of the presentation. So let's get started. A little bit of the context in which Giving Numbers happen. So CECP is a CEO-led coalition of more than 200 companies. It was started by philanthropist and actor Paul Newman. He believed that he wanted to start CECP with the belief that corporations could be a force for good in society. I particularly work for the Data Insights team, and we collect, compare, evaluate, and share the data we get from all companies with annual revenues of at least $2 billion. And we share those to create benchmarkings and help our corporate giving officers make the business case to increase their societal investments. Also, this is in terms of company CECP, as I mentioned before, is a CEO-led coalition of over 200 companies. And when we aggregate their revenues, it adds up to $7 trillion. And their societal investments represent almost $19 billion. And in this sense, I also want to talk a little bit about the overview of the participants. And last year, thank you, and thank you also to everyone who participated in the survey. We had more than 250 companies that reported their corporate societal engagement trends in the last year. And as you may be familiar, we collected this data throughout the spring, from January to March of 2018, and about topics of corporate societal engagement, such as matching gifts, volunteering programs, also management and program costs, total given trends, cost areas, etc. And it's also important to have a little bit of context and the background of how impactful is are the contributions from all these companies who participated in the survey. When we added up the contributions from all these 252 companies, it added up to almost $24 billion. So it's significant. That basically represents the gross domestic product of a middle-income country in the world. For instance, Honduras, that's basically their gross domestic product. So it's very significant, the contributions that all of you are doing. So in this sense, I would like to ask Lisa some examples of personal experience on how you have used the Giving Numbers data at Travelers.
Yes, thanks, Andre. At Travelers, we've been using the Giving Numbers report for over 10 years, and we use it as a tool to effectively benchmark against our industry peers and across industries. Not only do we support Giving in Numbers, but we also attend CECP's annual conference to gain additional insights and to network with other companies in the corporate philanthropy sector.
Thank you, Lisa. That's really important to hear your perspective on how the data can be used by our companies. So continuing with the presentation, we would like to also talk about the different ways companies are contributing to society. CECP knows that the corporate societal engagement alignment with the business has gone deeper and has become integrated with operations, assets, process, and functions in the firm. So in this sense, companies are no longer limited to just external causes or pillars, but also they're including internal business changes. CSR leaders have an opportunity to integrate different parts of the company when it comes to contribute to society. So we are aware that contributions to society from companies go beyond just total giving, which typically represents cash, in-kind donations, or pro bono services. But also there are other ways in which companies are contributing to society, such as impact investing. Companies know that they can also get benefit of an investment, but also contributing to society. Also, socially driven business decisions, socially driven product development. For instance, Cisco developed a product that helped agricultural cities in the world to have light after 6:30 p.m. Some of these areas don't have electricity, and that's how Cisco created this product to allow people in rural areas to continue their economic activity after 6:30. So these are just examples on how companies are contributing with a whole company approach. And in this sense, there are examples on how companies are contributing with just total giving, beyond just total giving. So for instance, Prudential in 2014 committed to building a $1 billion impact investment portfolio by 2020. Prudential has done social investment to reawake its headquarters in Newark by renovating a variety of real estate assets like the Han & Co. building, that after decades of being abandoned, now provides market rate apartments to the community, a Whole Foods market, and bookstores, and also education spaces for local universities. For instance, also Nielsen has contributed with data by sharing consumer research to assist communities. Also, MasterCard has donated their database to different nonprofits. Also, for instance, Walmart utilizes resources to support disaster response efforts. For instance, they have provided trucks, they have kept stores open, and have coordinated 24-hour call centers during natural disasters. Also, another example is the donation of intellectual property. DuPont researchers found a way to make a valuable chemical that leaves water as the byproduct instead of tons of acid, and they have shared these patents with nonprofits. Eastman Chemical devised a plastic packaging that could do more than double the shelf life of beer and soda. Procter & Gamble, they also made discoveries that could help doctors reduce skin discoloration from burns, wounds, and grafts. So all these companies donated these patents and all these other ways of contributing to society to different nonprofits. So in this sense, I would like to ask Sarah a little bit about how Travelers has expanded their contributions to society by something beyond what we consider total giving.
Yeah, thanks, Andre. Thanks for that question. So Travelers, we've developed a framework that really demonstrates how we support the community. And our community really does come in a variety of forms, but we've boiled it down to four main categories. The first is financial support. The second is volunteerism. The third, thought leadership or intellectual property. And the fourth, through in-kind support. So in addition to the $23 million that we provide in funding last year, we also support the community through a robust employee engagement and volunteerism strategy, as well as through intellectual property, thought leadership, and in-kind donations. And when I think of thought leadership, we've supported and published research similar to some of the other companies that you've mentioned. And our team, we're often asked to speak at national conferences to share our insights and to lend our expertise on best practices for addressing community and social issues. When I think about intellectual property or thought leadership, I think the example that best comes to my mind is our Travelers Small Business Risk Education Program, which we call here SBRE. The program is one of our large national signature programs, and it provides safety risk management education to women, minority, and veteran-owned small businesses in several markets that we do business throughout the country. The program provides workshops and one-on-one consultations that are delivered by Travelers risk control professionals who are experts in their field. So through the program, our risk control professionals are sharing content and knowledge with the community free of charge that is normally reserved for our customers and clients. So these are some examples of how we use our expertise to help the community and at the same time drive economic prosperity. As far as in-kind, from an in-kind standpoint, we do things like donate office space, donate furniture to nonprofits. But one of the best examples is our computer donations program, which is a partnership with an organization called Minnesota Computers for Schools, where we donate refurbished computers to schools throughout the Twin Cities area. So those are some examples of how we're going above and beyond financial contributions to support the community.
Thank you, Tara. I think those are great examples and a good combination of total giving initiatives, of what we consider typical total giving contributions, and also other creative ways to help society through donations of intellectual property, sharing also knowledge, training, and other important non-tangible assets to the community. So thank you so much for sharing that. And as we mentioned before, the S component in the ESG, knowing that E refers to environment and G refers to governance, we know that the S factor encompasses a lot of topics that go just beyond total giving. So in this sense, I would like to give the audience the opportunity to share their insights and their feedback on our first poll question. And the first poll question refers to including your social metrics in your ESG table, in your annual reports, or in any other sustainability reports. So the question is, does your sustainability report have S metrics in its ESG data table? So we have some options here, and we'll give some time to the audience to fill out this question. Yeah. Okay, so we'd like to share the results from the survey, and looks like there is some inclusion of S metrics in the ESG. We gather 48% of respondents said that yes, there's some inclusion of S metrics in the ESG. So thank you so much for your feedback. And we're continuing with our trends. Now we're moving on to total given trends in the last year. So we're going to start by mentioning how companies vary across the performance of total giving varies across industries. We know overall that the median of total giving in 2017 was $19 million. Also, you can see in the rows below the one that is highlighted right now how this median of total giving has varied across industries. Also, another important metric to measure is the ratio of the median of total giving as a percentage of revenues. This year, it was 0.12%, so it's less than 1%, but it's pretty much in line with what we've seen in past years. Another important metric to follow is what was the median of the ratio of total giving as a percentage of pre-tax profits. In 2017, that median of that ratio was 0.87%. So it's almost 1%. And we can see how this varies across industries. Each industry has gone through many situations and different contexts in the last year. For instance, we can see how what we have here is the gray bars show you the median of total giving for each industry in 2017. We can see that for all companies, that median of total giving was $19 million. And when we also measure the growth rate of the medians of total giving between 2015 and 2017 in a 3-year match set, that means just including companies that provided information in each of the last 3 years, we see that the median of total giving increased by 15%. So it's really encouraging to see that companies are pretty much engaged with contributing to society, and the trend keeps moving upwards. We can also see how this growth rate varies across different industries. For instance, the communications industry increased by 41%. Other industries like the energy industry decreased the median of its total giving by 29%. I know, for instance, that industry has been affected by external shocks like decreasing oil prices, and particularly the healthcare industry was the industry that increased the most in terms of the median of its total giving. It increased by 87%. So moving on to program areas. We want to know what companies are investing in. From this chart, you can see on the left-hand side of the slide that the two cost areas that received most of societal investment was education K-12 and higher education. Health and social services was the second program area that received most of total giving, a big proportion of total giving. It received 25% of all contributions across the board. It's also important to mention that disaster relief, although it represents a smaller proportion of all total contributions, it has increased its relative share from 3 years ago. This year, in 2017, it represented 6% of total contributions. So it's part of a smaller proportion of total giving. But we know that in past years, that share has been around 3%. And when we see in the right-hand slide, right-hand of the slide, we can see that disaster relief has tripled the median of its cash giving. It increased by 306%. That was the program area that increased the most between 2015 and 2017. Other program areas like community and economic development increased also by 27%. Culture and the arts increased by 16%. And that's really important to see. And it's no surprise that disaster relief increased the most across different program areas, given last year's natural disasters like Hurricane Harvey, Hurricane Maria, wildfires on the West Coast, and other natural disasters like earthquakes in Mexico, etc. So we also want to share with the public an example of how this program area allocation happens individually. And we know, for instance, that for travelers, this is their program area allocation. The cost area that received the most total given was health and social education, K-12, and also higher education. When you add those up, it adds to exactly 40% of their total contributions, and it's followed by health and social services. So in this sense, I would like to ask Lisa, why Travelers' biggest proportion of giving goes into education, and why do you think Travelers has made the business decision of investing in education? Why do you think it's so important?
Yes, thanks, Andre. So yes, education is our largest giving area, and that includes, as you mentioned, both K-12 and higher education funding. Our education strategy is focused on providing academic and career success to students throughout the country. We support education because as a company, we see this as a business imperative and a way to provide a local talent pool for our company and industry, and because it helps to provide stability to the community. In 2007, our company launched the Travelers Edge program, which is our company's signature talent pipeline initiative. And EDGE stands for Empowering Dreams for Graduation and Employment. Travelers Edge was founded as a challenge grant from the company's corporate board of directors, who wanted us to create a program that would benefit the community and at the same time support the company's need for more diverse talent. Travelers Edge provides 360-degree support to underrepresented students in the form of scholarships, professional development, mentoring, and academic support while they're pursuing their 2- or 4-year degrees. To date, we've provided the support to more than 450 college students and have exposed thousands of students to the industry. And Travelers Edge really is the cornerstone of our education strategy.
Thank you, Lisa, for sharing this beautiful example of the EDGE program, which stands for Empowering Dreams for Graduation and Employment, and how it positively affects the lives of so many students. And given that disaster relief was such an important topic in last year's contributions, I would like to ask Tara a little bit about Travelers' related initiatives to disaster relief in the last year.
Yeah, so disaster relief, preparedness, or resilience really is woven into the fabric of who we are as a business. As I mentioned earlier, we're a property and casualty insurance company, and so our business really is about helping our customers, our employees, and our communities to identify and prevent risk, whether that be at home, in their businesses, or on the road. From a philanthropic standpoint, or what we do here in community relations and the foundation, our programs are really focused on prevention and what we call community resilience. And we do this through several strategic programs that help to ensure that communities are better prepared for and can recover from catastrophic events. One example of that would be our Excellence in Community Resilience Award, which was an initiative that we launched a few years ago in partnership with the Travelers Institute, which is our company's public policy arm. The award recognizes organizations that demonstrate leadership in addressing community resilience, and the award is accompanied by a $100,000 grant. We announced the recipients of this award in May or June and to align with our company's hurricane preparedness event. The first recipient of the award was Team Rubicon. Many of you might have heard of Team Rubicon. I feel like they've really become a household name, but they're a nonprofit organization that uses the skills and experience of military veterans to respond to disasters. Since winning the award, our Community Resilience Award, we've continued our partnership with Team Rubicon through an additional $1 million grant. And that grant helps to fund their mobile engagement team, which travels across the country in an RV to provide training and to recruit volunteers to help build community preparedness and resilience. So that's one example. Another example of a strategic initiative or an initiative that we worked on was one where we partnered with an organization called All Hands and Hearts, and they're another organization that received our Community Resilience Award. This past February, through a partnership with All Hands, 35 Travelers employees, led by our Travelers CEO, Alan Schnitzer, visited Yabucoa, Puerto Rico to help with some of the rebuilding efforts following Hurricane Maria. And we all know about the destruction and devastation that Hurricane Maria caused in Puerto Rico. And so our team came together and we were able to help restore a baseball field for the children in that community and for the community as a whole. The community has a strong, deep cultural connection to baseball, and we really learned that what kids needed in that community was a safe place to play, being that so many of the schools were only opened part-time or closed. And so that was something that we were really proud to be able to go down and do. And those are some examples of how our company is helping to address preparedness and resilience. And I do think that we'll see resilience becoming a larger part of our strategic focus going forward.
Thank you, Tara, for sharing this really good insights and also great examples of how disaster relief initiatives can be implemented in a very holistic way. And it can happen in different ways, like your Community Resilience Award, and also other initiatives like the one where Team Rubicon helps communities in the U.S., and also the collaboration with All Hands and Hearts to support the disaster relief in Puerto Rico. So I thank you for sharing those examples with the audience. So moving forward, we also want to share another important topic, which is the top priority focus areas. As you may be familiar, we collect this data in the Giving Numbers survey by asking top of mind, and this is an open-ended response, typically put in 2 words, about what are the top 4 priority focus areas by respondents. And this is self-reported by our companies. And then we categorize the data into these buckets that we are presented here. What we have here is the different percentage of companies that reported any of these type of categorized focus areas. And it's interesting to see the comparison between 2015 and 17. For instance, we see on the right-hand side of the slide that health and well-being was one of the largest top priority focus areas. It was reported by 36% of companies in 2015. However, it decreased to just 29% of companies in 2017. Also, environment and sustainability decreased the percentage of companies reporting it. But on the other side, it's really important to mention other focus areas that have increased in the course of the last 3 years. For instance, workforce employment and STEM have been 2 focus areas that have increased between 2015 and 17. We also see that diversity and inclusion, for instance, although it represents a smaller proportion of companies, it has also increased in the last year, couple of years. So continuing with this, we want to talk a little bit about employee engagement initiatives in 2017. So we wanted to share with the audience that basically 1/3, 1 out of 3 companies, out of 3 employees are volunteering. They reported that 30% of employees have volunteered at least 1 hour on company time. When we see it in terms of a matched set of companies, this volunteer participation rate has increased from 32% to 34%. We also took a closer look to the domestic volunteer program that increased the most across all other programs in terms of the percentage of companies that offered it. And that refers to the green bars here. For instance, flexible scheduling increased from 55% of companies offering it in 2015 to 63% in 2017. So that was the program with the highest increase in domestic volunteer offering. So it's really encouraging to see that employees remain engaged and continue offering their volunteering even more as time goes by. Also, we wanted to share with the audience the offering of the different domestic volunteer programs. We also have a comparison with the international offering of these programs as well. And it's relevant to see that the 2 programs that imply some type of flexibility in employees' schedule were the ones that were offered the most. Paid release time was offered by 65% of companies in 2017. And flexible scheduling, which, as you may be familiar, implies that employees don't have to make up for the time that they used to volunteer, as opposed to paid release time. Actually, no, it's the opposite. Flexible scheduling, they have to make up for the time. And paid release time, the company allows employees to volunteer on company time. But flexible scheduling was also offered by 64% of companies. pro bono service was offered technically by 6 out of 10 companies. So this varies across industries for sure, but we consider it was really important to share this first insights with the public. Also, it's very prevalent to see that companies are offering matching gifts. 9 out of 10 companies matched employee contributions in 2017. Year-round policy, which refers to matching gift programs not attached to any specific point in the year, were offered by 80% of companies. Disaster relief went to 48% in 2017. We know from past years that this percentage was slightly lower, although it's relevant to clarify that this is by not using any match set of companies, but we know that historically the percentage of companies offering disaster relief has been lower than this 48% that we see here. So in this sense, I would like to ask Tara a little bit of how you use this data or any examples of employee engagement initiatives at Travelers. Because I know Travelers has this really interesting program called the Travelers Community Connections Program.
Yeah, we actually do. Thank you. So we do recognize that our biggest asset that we can offer the community is our employee base. And so our employees have an option to volunteer in a variety of ways. And that includes both traditional volunteering or skills-based volunteering. They can serve on boards and on community committees. And volunteering is done both on a company time, which you considered, I guess, flexible scheduling, as well as personal time. So they have the option to do either of those. It really is up to the discretion of the manager in that particular department, but we offer those flexible ways of volunteering. And so you mentioned the Community Connections Program. So about 10 years ago, I think it's 10 years ago now, we launched this program as a means to deploy our employees into their local communities. And employees throughout the country have the opportunity to assemble volunteer teams to do work with organizations that are aligned to our giving priorities. Those organizations that our employees are volunteering for can then apply to have a grant, to receive a grant up to $15,000. And what this really does is to help further the investment that we're making through our employees by backing it with a financial investment through a grant. Last year, our TCC, or our Community Connections Program, provided $850,000 in support to communities throughout the country. The other thing we do is offer our employees the opportunity to log their hours. And our employee hour last year logged, our employees logged 143,000 volunteer hours nationally.
Thank you, Tara. And I also would like to hear a little bit more about your Dollars for Doers program and any other examples of how you at Travelers perform matching gift programs. Maybe Lisa can help us with understanding your initiatives.
Sure. In addition to their team volunteer support, Travelers encourages employees' individual interest in the community as well. So employees donate financially through our employee giving campaigns and also through the Travelers Matching Gifts program. And in 2017, employees donated $2.6 million of their own dollars through the campaign to more than 4,000 organizations, and also directed another $2.6 million in corporate matching funds to about 5,000 organizations in 48 states, the District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico. And those matching dollars are both for our gifts of time, also known as the Dollars for Doers program, and our gifts of money. Our matching gifts of money program are donations to eligible nonprofit organizations that we match dollar for dollar up to $500 per calendar year. And in addition to that, we have our matching gifts of time program, which enables employees to connect with volunteer opportunities and apply for up to 2 $500 volunteer match grants for eligible nonprofits.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And we have a question here. Janice asked, what does flexible scheduling mean? So I just want to clarify the definition. Flexible scheduling is when, for example, an employee may leave a few hours early to attend a nonprofit meeting, yet will often make up the time by coming in early the next day, as opposed to paid release time, in which it's also called on company time or volunteer time off volunteerism. This includes time spent by employees during a normal paid work schedule to donate time to a qualifying organization within corporate policies. With such policy, that's the main difference. The employee does not make up hours missed in paid release time. So it happens on company time. So thank you so much, Lisa, again, for your examples of dollars for doers and matching gift contributions. So
and
continuing
Andre,
with our...
Andre, this is Tara. Sorry, before we move on, I just wanted to thank the person for that question and to also clarify that we have both, and it really is up to the manager's discretion. I'm not sure if that was really clear when I was explaining it, that we do have both the paid time off and the flexible scheduling. And so those are really up to the manager's discretion.
Excellent. Thank you for the clarification. So continuing with our presentation, we also want to cover a little bit about structure and measurement by giving numbers respondents. So it's interesting to see that in 2017, 3 out of 10 companies reported that they were also measuring the business value of their employee engagement policies. For instance, what is measuring the business value of an employee engagement program? This means, for instance, having employees taking a survey that measures their employee satisfaction rates and compare, for instance, those that engage in any type of volunteerism and those who didn't. Or another example could be measuring how the branding has improved in the communities that a given company has served. So those are examples of measuring the business value of employee engagement programs. And it goes hand in hand with increasing total giving. We know that by measuring the business value of employee engagement, companies may be more equipped to know how to maximize their total contributions or understand better how to handle their total giving. And it doesn't imply any causation. We're not saying that if you measure the business value of employee engagement, total giving will automatically increase, but they definitely go hand in hand and don't happen in detriment of each other. So in this sense, we have a comparison of 2 types of companies in this table. On the first row, from above, we see that companies that measure just the societal outcomes or impacts of their programs, their total giving increased by 12% between 2015 and 17. But those companies that not only measure the societal outcomes in terms of their initiatives, but also measure the business value of their employee engagement programs, the total contributions for these companies increased by slightly more than the other group of companies. It increased by 18%. Again, this doesn't imply any causation, but it implies that there's a relationship that goes hand in hand between measuring and also increasing and maximizing total contributions from companies. This is also important to clarify that in 2017, technically 9 out of 10 companies measured the societal outcomes of their programs, and 11% didn't do any type of measurement. Among those who measured the societal outcomes of their programs, we know what type of measurement they did. And it's really interesting to see that only 20% of companies measure the societal outcomes on all their grants. As we know, resources are limited and scarce across companies and in general. So most companies, when they measured the societal outcomes of their programs, they did so on just their flagship program. 39% of companies that measure outcomes did it on their strategic program. And we have the rest of the breakdown here. So in this sense, I would like to ask Tara about a little bit about internal measurement, and also Lisa can share with us a little bit about external measurement of outcomes.
Yeah, so Andre, our measurement work has really been a work in progress, and we're working to better measure the work we do in the community in terms of our local giving portfolios, but as well as in terms of our national strategic and signature programs. Like most of the companies in the report, most of our focus from a metric standpoint has really been on our strategic programs. And with those, we look at the impact we have on both our external community as well as the impact to our internal stakeholders. So as far as our signature programs go, like our Traveler's Edge program and our Small Business Risk Education program that Lisa and I talked about earlier, we knew that we wanted to measure the effects of our initiatives from the start. And so when we built both initiatives, we built in measurement capabilities. And we see these as really helping us to do three things. One is to help us drive oversight and accountability. The second thing is to help us understand and maximize our impact. And then the third thing is to help us effectively communicate that impact to our key stakeholders. So if I can just talk about our small business risk education program as an example, when we launched the program back in 2012, we elicited the expertise of a measuring consulting firm to help us build an impact framework and a methodology for collecting data. Our metrics are constantly evolving over time, but our program was really designed to do three things: to increase the awareness of risk management and business continuity concepts for small businesses, to measure the completion of safety risk management plans to help our small businesses better plan for catastrophes, and then three, to help our small businesses access loans. And since the program's inception, we've had 1,500 small businesses to participate in the program. They've attended our safety risk management workshops, and they've received more than $1 million has been distributed in loan capital. And so for the past 2 years, the program has seen a 30% increase in participation, and we expect to see that same type of increase in the next year. We do also survey all of our participants at the end of each workshop, and this year we've learned that 85% of our participants feel our workshops provide a good working knowledge of risk management. We're still trying to figure out how to measure the long-term impact of the program, but we feel at least that we're measuring something and that we have a good start. And we've built that same kind of discipline in with our Traveler's Edge program that Lisa talked about earlier. Each year we collect data from several sources, including students, colleges and universities, internal partners or internal employees who are serving as managers and mentors. We look at several metrics. So for instance, we might look at GPAs of the students, the impact of our financial support, our scholarships, just to name a few things. And we communicate that data both internally and externally annually. We feel that our data collection efforts are helping us to better support students and their successes, and at the same time, we're able to look at the impact that it has internally on our employees, specifically in terms of diversity and inclusion, and leadership development. So that's how we're thinking about our national strategic programs. And again, it is a work in progress, and we're constantly looking at how to better do that work. And then I'm going to ask Lisa if you want to talk about some of the work that we've been doing to look at our national giving portfolios.
Sure, thanks, Tara. So in 2017, we implemented the Blackbaud Outcomes tool to better evaluate grantees and programs by collecting progress updates for better tracking and reporting of progress towards their goals. And we didn't start off with our entire portfolio. We picked a pilot program, and we chose first our Thriving Neighborhoods area. And within that area, we have 6 subcategories, such as job and skill development, small business risk education, workforce development, and a few others. And when we started, we needed to ask ourselves a few questions, and we needed to define an outcome and an output. And an outcome is, why is your program in existence, and what impact do you expect to make, and how is it going to better your organization? An output is the proof point and your metric toward that goal. So we're excited about collecting this data, as it's going to give us some valuable insights to look at the data aggregately. It allows us as funders and our grantees to collaborate on intended outcomes and measurements. And it also allows us as funders to select subcategories from a taxonomy of measures, as I mentioned before. So as funders, we can roll up and analyze the impact of our programs. The grantees can provide their projections toward their goal and record their progress update at the 6-month time frame, and again annually at the end of their grant. This evaluation data drives decision-making through regular progress updates, and it helps us as a foundation engaging the impact of our funding. And when examined in aggregate over time, this data can provide insights on the organization's values and priorities and other opportunities for course correction. So this is a great tool to engage our grantees, to help them tell their story, help us tell our impact story, and to give us insights towards our future investments.
Thank you, Tara and Lisa. Yes, and we at CECP know how challenging it can be to measure the societal outcomes and impacts of your programs. But you both provided really good examples on how it can be done externally and internally, and the different levels within the logic model of measurement. So thank you so much for sharing that knowledge with the audience. So continuing with our presentation, and we also want to get feedback from the audience in terms of what topics were most useful from this presentation for you. So we're going to have our second poll question. And the question here is, which of these new topics that we covered today in this presentation were most exciting to you or more useful? And the options are total given trends, program areas, employee engagement, or was it measurement of outcomes in businesses, and or international giving? And in the meantime, I would like to answer a question from the audience, from Ali Wagner. She's asking, do you have any insights into the average amount of paid release time offered to employees? In the Giving Numbers survey, we actually collect data on pro bono service hours, specifically to pro bono service, or overall on company or outside company volunteer hours. So we don't really have, we don't cover that specificity of the data, but we have overall outside and on company time hours. So so we want to see, we were going to close the survey now, and we'll see that the topic that received most preference across respondents was total given trends. So it's important to see, as we mentioned before, how total giving has increased in the last 3 years. Okay, so continuing with our presentation, we're going to close our survey, and we also wanted to mention a little bit about international giving. So last year, in 2017, 2 out of $10 went into international end recipients. And we know that this trend varies across different industries. There are industries like the materials industry that are more prone, or the technology industry, they have a higher share of international giving out of total giving. And there are other industries like the utilities industry that is more locally focused, with 3% of their total contributions going to international end recipients. So thank you so much for joining us. This is the information we had for today's presentation, and feel free to ask any questions you have. And I also want to use this time to thank Tara and also Lisa for sharing their knowledge and useful examples with the audience. So the audience can use this time to make any questions, and we'll be more than happy to respond.
Thank you, Andre, for having us on. We really enjoyed being able to share our story, and so look forward to hearing any questions or follow-ups that you might have.
Yes, thank you, Andre.
Thank you. And there's a question here. It comes from Jenny Mo. It says, it's for travelers, actually. The question says, outside of the award program, what is another example of how travelers activate around community resiliency? Are there ways that they engage employees in this effort? So maybe you can help us with this question, Tara and Lisa.
Yeah, so the other example that, in the way that we engage our employees, we have another program, it's more of a national signature program too, through Habitat International and our local Habitat affiliates, called our Habitat Fortified initiative, where we deploy employees to build homes that are up to that fortified standards in coastal wind areas. helping to make sure that, windows are more secure, that roofs are more secured in the event that there's some type of storm or natural weather event. So that's another way that we're helping to address resilience. I'm just trying to think of other examples. So we have the Team Rubicon, we have Habitat. Yeah, those are pretty much the examples that come to mind.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that. And also we have a question from Kyle Ligos. The question is, do you have some high-level examples of what would be considered other in the perm area pie chart on slide 13? And the answer is most of the perms fall under any of the other eight categories we have here, but sometimes companies are not able to categorize their contributions. So it may sound very obvious, but other includes contributions that do not fall into any of the above main beneficiary categories, or for which the recipient is unknown. And sometimes we also know that some contributions or some programs overlap in terms of the cost areas that they cover. So when companies are not able to make a distinction of which program area the program falls under, it goes into the other category. Okay, let's see if there's another question. I think those were all the questions we had for today. So I want to thank again Tara and Lisa for their extraordinary contribution to this webinar, and I also want to thank all the audience for sticking with us and checking and enjoying this first glimpse into the Giving Numbers 2018 edition report. So as I mentioned before, feel free to download the report from our website. It's available to all public today, and we also want to know your feedback. And we're going to pass a questionnaire as a survey question at the end of this presentation, and feel free to fill it out. And again, thanks to everyone, and hope you have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was really fun. Thank you.